Hi, welcome to our channel. My name is Kasia and I'm a chartered architect based in UK. Today I thought we'll review a video by Architectural Digest, which is 3 interior designers convert the same attic into a home office. So let's see what they'll do today.
These 3 interior designers have been asked to transform this empty attic space into a home office. They have free reign to design it in any way they please.
No clients, no restrictions. That sometimes is more of an issue rather than a help, to be honest. No restrictions. Okay, let's see.
My first impressions of this space are, wow, what potential.
It is very sad and dark. Got a big pole in the way, no natural light.
That's true, there's no natural light. It is quite a harsh environment.
I also love the pitched ceilings.
I personally also love pitched ceiling.
I love the idea of turning a sort of mundane space into something that's highly functional and also beautiful in its own right.
Yes, whenever we design a gable, we always make sure that the ceiling follows the line of the joists so that you get that more of a dramatic effect. Sometimes placing at the end of it a triangular window can create a very nice lighting environment.
The idea here is that this is my personal beach escape. It's always my goal to be on vacation, at least mentally.
I think it could be really fun to lean into a 70s vibe and mix in some Brazilian and space age elements to really spice it up. My vision for this space is light, it is neutrals, but it's fun. I do want for you to add luminosity into the space so that it feels like a really rich and rewarding place to do work.
I think what will happen, because there is no client, it's simply them designing that space for themselves ultimately. So this is where they would want to work in and be in. So in general, kind of, I would assume that they are the client. So we'll see what will come up of it.
These floors have a very unfinished look. We've got these slats. It almost looks like a subfloor.
It looks a little dangerous for us to walk on this, but I also really like them. The floor is currently these open slats. I'm gonna opt in for a wall-to-wall mustard yellow carpet. I chose this really beautiful plush carpet by Christopher Farr. It's hand woven, made of wool and silk, and I think it will really help cozy up the room.
Okay, so the actual sample looks much better than the visualization, because on the visualization, the way they did it, it was really dark. It was almost brown, and I didn't like that. The actual sample that she has, it's a nice tone of yellow. If you match it nicely with more neutral tones, it can look nice, it can look good.
There's something about these floors that is inspiring me because I can see all of that light through it. So what I want to do, which is kind of wild, I want to cover the floor in like a really thick lucite. You can get lucite sheets in really, really big pieces. And that is going to enable me to have a stable, sturdy floor that doesn't have giant holes through it, but I'll still get all that light from underneath.
Okay, so the lucite sheets, it's an interesting concept. Those slats doesn't seem too close from each other, but you need to think, okay, this is an attic, that means there are people below you, so I don't know how much you could see while looking up, whether you can actually see people moving. And while it can be an interesting concept, if you have bedrooms below that, at least in UK, you often have that attic on top of like a bedroom space or something like that. It's a home office, right? Therefore, I don't know, I want to stay late and work, and my currently non-existent, but let's say children are sleeping downstairs. I wouldn't want that light from upstairs actually to affect people who want to have a rest downstairs, right? So I am not so sure about it.
What I want to do is place a beautiful white lacquer wood floor. It's very Scandinavian, it's clean, but at the same time it's warm. Unlike tile, wood floors retain heat, and so we've got this like reflective, bright, clean white surface that still feels kind of cozy.
I'm not a huge fan of white painted floor, but it's definitely fitting in some scenarios, in some regions to use it, and it's traditional in some regions. I often prefer almost this kind of natural look of wood, but it's a nice safe option, I would say.
Now, I'm not just gonna do a white lacquered wood floor. I kind of had this idea to work with this beautiful terrazzo slab material.
I wouldn't say about cozy, to be honest. I don't think white wooden panels remind me personally of cozy. However, that's quite personal. I think when I think of cozy, it's more plush, warm, darker sort of space rather than, let's say, the very bright and light one. I do not necessarily think of Scandinavian style as cozy, and that's what she's aiming for. But that may be my personal opinion in this case.
And I'm gonna have this inlaid into the corner here where my seating area is. So it's like my little pond in the middle of my beach.
This is quite cute, I think. Not sure about the pond in the middle of the beach, but I think creating a different zone with a different floor pattern is quite smart.
So the walls are currently a cement brick, and I would love to clad them in a beautiful black walnut.
Walnut is a nice color, but it's really intense. So to be honest, I hope she will match this mustard colored floor with something much lighter. I do worry it will be quite overwhelming the way it is going.
So the walls and the ceiling here, I'm going to cover them all in a beautiful palm print wallpaper. I really love this one from Arte. It kind of emulates that palm tree shadow on sand that you see sometimes when you're on vacation.
I do like Arte wallpapers. They have this kind of sometimes three-dimensional quality to them. They don't mention things like potentially placing some insulation between those rafters or something to make sure that space doesn't overheat very quickly. Maybe they just assumed this was already done. I'm not so sure. But the wallpaper in general is quite a nice one. I like it.
We're gonna hand paint a motif across each beam. This is something that I've seen in India, and I just really love that sort of artisanal feel, and it would make me happy to look at this every day.
I'm actually all for creating those little moments of detail and like artistry, as she called it. I usually like it to be something more related to local area that attic is in. We don't know, of course, where it is, so I'm not so sure, but in general, those little moments I think create some form of interest and personality within the space.
So I personally don't live for cinder block. It's a very practical material. They feel very cold and a little austere. If I don't have a budget, I'm going to do a lime wash. I think it's still really luxurious. There's something almost elemental and mineral rich about doing the walls in a special finish that comes from the earth.
I quite like a lime wash finish. I think it's very trendy recently to do a lime wash. It's a nice sort of finish that gives a more natural vibe, I would say.
I really love the vaulted ceiling. Well, I want to show that off, but I want to make sure the roof stays standing. We're going to replace this structural post instead with trusses. I love the ones that spray out like a sun. And if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it is a queen post truss.
Yeah, and I like what she did actually with the beams. I think removing that central columns really helps that space. And they actually, at least in the visualization, thought about how to distribute that load differently with those arches that you see at the top. So it's a nice detail.
We're gonna have a skylight in as many places as we can.
Most importantly, I think we have to bring in some skylights into this space. I want to add skylights in this space.
So yeah, skylights, of course, are a very obvious choice in a space like that. You need this natural light in the space. I'm not sure if it's the manner of visualization, but all of the skylights they added are just like very, very standard, like rectangular ones, and they're all kind of very small in a way. I think it would be really, really nice to explore more of a vertical, longer skylight where you can get maybe even a bit of a better view out of it, but also some more of an interesting lighting quality inside. I would play around with them for sure a bit more.
We can't move it. It's a fireplace, it's gotta stay.
And with this chimney situation, I think it would be really great to just create a built-in bookshelf with it.
So the built-in bookshelf, again, what's happening downstairs? Because by doing that, you ultimately remove the chimney. That means there's no chimney all the way down, going to downstairs. I don't know how many stories this building has. Does it mean we remove all of the fireplaces in that building? Does it mean we remove potentially ventilation. If it's an older home, usually a chimney was the only place where actually the ventilation happened in a home, depending again where it is located. So I don't think it's such a straightforward decision to simply remove the chimney. And if she did, it would be good that she mentioned some of those complications that may happen. I think it's a bit risky for me, and yeah, I wouldn't do that.
I think we mirror the chimney shape on the other side, do another built-in bookshelf that matches.
Yeah, if you remove the chimney, I don't think there's any reason to kind of replicate or even keep those shapes, right? It's simply gone.
Artist Lucas Wegwerth, who's out of Germany, he makes these beautiful, like stained pink and stained natural, almost scallop shape, like dragon scale shingles.
Okay, the scallops. On a visualization, it doesn't look good, to be honest. I don't like it. But to be honest, it may look good in real life. What she speaks about sounds interesting, but at least the visualization didn't replicate it properly. It looks weird.
So we decided to make it sort of a functional art piece. I've plastered it and carved out some niches.
It's actually quite trendy right now to use those kind of arched walls and spaces for decor.
So I think it'd be really cool to accentuate these poles and round them out and cover them in polished steel.
Okay, if you are keeping that post, then that's not a bad way to create something interesting out of it. I would just make sure it's a brush chrome, not like a very reflective one, because the reflective one could reflect light in a manner that's too strong, at least for me, to work nearby.
The back of this space is going to be my coffee break area. Coffee is an absolute must for me. And I like this idea of having a drink station where we can just take a break, make a drink.
I like built-in benches in general. I think that's always a nice touch. I love how in this project, when it comes to work, she talks about all of the ways she will rest instead of potentially all of the ways in which she could work. But fair enough, fair enough.
Create a ridiculous S-shaped table that snakes itself around the fireplace and then into it. And I'm very excited about this S table because I've done it as a dining table once before and it seated so many people.
I love the S-shaped table idea. In general, I love bespoke curved tables as well. When it fluctuates a bit more, sometimes it can become even like a sitting space. Not in this case, of course, but to be honest, I actually love the flexibility and different ways of collaboration that you can have in an organically shaped table that's done specifically to fit the purpose.
It can serve as a giant shared desk. It can serve as a collaboration table where like we have samples all over the table and we're looking at them with each other. So in the front of the space, I really want to create a lounge reading type area. So I want to bring in this amazing chair. It's ring-shaped. It's by a Brazilian architect named Ricardo Fasanello.
It doesn't look very comfortable, that chair, to be honest. If I'm thinking about reading nook area, I'm thinking about huge, plush, cozy, I can really lean back to, because the only way you can actually read on that chair, I wouldn't read on that. It would be uncomfortable. I would really need to look down on a book. My neck would start hurting really quickly.
I love the idea of building a day bed off of the right side bookshelf.
And even that bed is a bit better. You can kind of put those cushions in a way that it supports your back properly. But I don't think that's very functional, to be honest.
So to further create division without actually adding walls, I like to use rugs because they visually sort of delineate areas in rooms. Here we're going to add a beautiful terracotta colored rug in the middle with an island on top. We look at lots of samples, so we really do need a lot of that flat space. Okay, I think it definitely makes sense for her to add rugs because we have this very wide, long surface that's quite hard. So adding something to soften it up, I think that's definitely a good idea. Will make it slightly more cozy, and she mentioned she's aiming for that vibe. So we're creating this island area in the middle, and the idea is group gatherings. Okay, group gathering, yes, of course it's needed. I think if it's, for now I don't see any
sitting around that table. So I would either make sure that this table is higher, so it is for group gathering, but you know, when you stand in front of the table, it's like with the standing desk, it needs to be a bit higher for it to be comfortable for everybody. If it's a desk or like a table you're supposed to sit around and have like a seated discussion, then we need some chairs or stools or something.
Another thing that's super, super important in my office and probably most offices is storage. I'm going to add this beautiful credenza off to the right.
I don't know, I think it would be really amazing if that bench at the back kind of continued onwards and became part of the storage solutions as well, to make it a little bit more bespoke and continuous, because right now there's a lot of space that seems really empty, but let's see, maybe she will still fill it out.
Above the credenza, again, because we don't really have a lot of tall wall space, I'm going to include these ceiling mount shelves.
Also, the way those shelves are being attached, it seems like they're almost attached to the ceiling, but not to the beams. That wouldn't work necessarily very well. So I would really need to rethink the support of that shelving. It doesn't look secure. It may be, again, that the visualizers didn't know necessarily exactly what it is they were doing.
So I want to use this Able chair from BDDW.
Okay, that's a chair that you have a lot of support across the whole of your back. So I think that looks like a comfy chair or like an armchair.
Incredible designer, Maurice Marty, who's represented by 21st Gallery. They make a bolt desk. It's so bonko, and I like kind of need it up here. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is a bit ridiculous, but if that's what makes it fun for her and wants her, you know, to smile every time she enters that room, then I'm really all for it. I really believe our spaces should have more of those little elements that make us laugh or smile every time we walk into them.
And then on the left, that's going to be our relaxation area, because I don't know about you, but most creative people and people in general need a lot of breaks.
And the relaxation area is nice.
The chair is a beautiful chair by Thomas Hayes Studio. He's based here in LA, and I've reupholstered it with this St. Frank fabric.
Nice chair, but not very ergonomic, so I'm not sure how it would be for like a longer periods of working, but she does mention that she likes a lot of breaks and getting out of that chair, so.
If this were my office, we keep samples in the office. We keep these like pieces of wood and like leather and fabric, right? Like we need somewhere for that to go.
Yeah, we need loads of spaces for samples, that's true.
I love having things have friends in my spaces. So I don't want this little armadillo cabinet back here to be a lonely friend.
Armadillo cabinet? Looks quite weird. I think the main two things I'm not sure about is right now that cabinet and that, again, patterned she used on a chimney, but again, I'm not so sure how it would actually look in the real life. That visualization is not that good quality when it comes to that, I think. Although if it does look like that, then I don't like it. And to be honest, the samples, I really love them displayed in a way that you can really walk up the wall, be inspired by them. I'd rather have much more, let's say, if you even place like bespoke shelving across that whole back wall and beautifully placed each sample with a bit of a title at the bottom, I think that would look just like an art piece in itself, rather than just hiding them all in a cabinet that I'm not sure even is designed to be fit for purpose.
Here's the other thing about home office in the attic. I personally feel really strongly about accessibility, especially when it comes to commercial spaces. I'm gonna put an elevator in my home office. So we're gonna do one of those little tube elevators that you can retrofit into older houses, and they don't go very far. They only go like...
So there is a small tube elevator, which is great. She thinks about accessibility. We don't know, to be honest, what's downstairs and how much space there is for that. But assuming she can do that, then of course, why not?
Let's talk about lighting. I do like more of an ambient glow, which is why I'm not in a home office putting like big desk functional lights everywhere over this giant S-shaped table. I want to do something kind of unexpected and a little bit animalish because of the like armadillo scale thing that I'm really excited.
Okay, I'm scared. I'm scared.
So there are these light fixtures made out of leather.
Okay, no, they look nice. I like it. They look quite beautiful.
From La Viva Home. They're by a Colombian artist and his team, Edgar Beltran Jaramillo.
I'm not personally a big fan of recessed lighting. I think there are better options here.
Recessed lighting can look quite nice if done properly.
So what I want is the drama. We've got this beautiful pitch ceiling, these dramatic skylights, and so I wanted to add a chandelier that I love. This is the
Okay.
Lindsay Adelman chandelier.
Looks interesting. I'm not sure how much light it gives to the space. I like the look of it. I would just, it's an office space. It needs a proper amount of lights.
In addition to the skylights, I want to bring in a lot of ambient lighting to the space. So on the front lounge area, I'm going to add in this light fixture by Mario Yagi. I actually have this light in my dining room and I'm obsessed with it. The frame is made out of a French silk.
Looking back at this visualization, it's actually a nice touch in a way to have this frosted glass panels, but once she starts covering it with stuff and loads of books, unless it's just like a decorative placement of a couple of books, then it will be quite quickly covered. I don't know, maybe I talk from my experience. I have loads of books, so I don't think we'll see much of that light coming through once they are all there. But yeah, it would be nice to see them as well on that visualization, so we can see how it actually looks.
And I think it brings a really nice feminine touch to the space.
This is like more ambient lighting. In general, I like ambient lighting because it's not that strong, and she places it in an area where we can have a bit of a, let's say, slightly darker space, and that light needs to be only focused for when you're reading a book, right? When the light is too strong, it hits your eye in the wrong way. You can get headaches. I get headaches. I can't have too strong of a light in my space. At my home, I have most of my lighting is ambient lighting because I don't want to look directly into the light source because it can be harmful to your eyes actually. So be wary of that when you see like those kind of exposed light bulb types of lighting. Make sure it's not too strong as you don't damage your eyes.
On the right side above the daybed, I want to bring in this oversized sconce by A&D Light.
Okay, is that all? I hope it's not all about the lighting because we need some in that back office space.
I actually have a new lighting collection with Corbett Lighting, and I'm really, really excited and very proud of them. But I'm really into using my Riviere sconce.
Okay.
They're like alabaster roundies that sit dangling off of the sconce base.
It does look cool, but it would look like, if this is a lamp that what she showed us just a second ago, it would look like it would be lighting directly into your eye rather than onto a desk, unless it somehow has that light feature at the bottom. I don't know that light, I'm not so sure, but at this moment I don't see a proper lighting on top of that desk, so it would be quite hard, I think, to work there.
Again, I want fewer distractions, but I want a vibe. Office is not complete without a vibe, and I think I want to do that with lighting. So I'm going to do a wash of lighting up all of the walls, the entire perimeter with LED color light.
Okay, that's quite intense, I would say, to be honest. Yeah, I like the lighting changes the concept, but that's a lot in that space.
The decor I'm going to keep to a minimum. I'm going to put some books on the bookshelf.
Okay, so we have some books, as I mentioned. It's nice to put it that it's not too much, yeah, so we can see that light coming through. But I still didn't see any lighting design for that back part, like.
And then I love plants. They bring fresh air and they just make a space feel good. So this is my little aerial jungle.
I do love plants. I have a hard time maintaining them, unfortunately, but I'm learning.
We've got hanging plants, we've got floor trees, we've got a tree over here in this built-in banquette. So we're scattering greenery all throughout, again, for that ethereal sort of breath of fresh air feel that we're trying to capture.
Final thoughts. Actually, let's just go towards my final thoughts. I think if I were to choose just one of those three spaces, I think it would be what she calls the Scandinavian bright room. I think if I were to be in one space, for me personally, that would be the most gentle one. But if I could kind of mix and match slightly between the crazy pink space and this one, I think that would be somewhere more like right up my alley. I do like a little bit more bespoke cabinetry that's more fit for purpose. We do design it quite often to make sure that we use the space to its fullest potential, right? But in general, I like greenery. I think it's a bit too white for me, but I think that wallpaper, which you can hardly see on that visualization, brings that intensity of whiteness a little bit down. I would like to see a little bit more light wooden elements here, but in general the space looks quite aesthetic. I think if we were to introduce like a couple of interesting moments from the other space and improve slightly on the functionality of that space, so that this desk where you actually sit down and work is not almost like an afterthought in the corner, because where you look from, I almost don't like that this desk is towards what I assume is us, where the wall is. I would just want to actually rotate it in a way that I look at that beautiful space while I work. I don't like being faced with a wall when I work. I like to see something in front of me, something interesting. So I think that would be my main issue with actually working in that space. But as a recreational space, yeah, I would like to spend some time in it. It looks quite cool. I would wish that that middle table was higher so you can use it as a standing desk or like a standing group space, because there's definitely no chairs around it, but I quite like it. I think that I like the least the dark space. I think there was very little said about the lighting, and especially that area where you have a workspace, and that space seems really underutilized. In that huge backspace, we have only like a desk with 2 chairs, and we don't see much more of it. And it's very dark. While I don't mind darker spaces, I'm not so sure about them for offices, or maybe we can create a lighter and a darker zone where you can more like relax, close your eyes from time to time, and then have a bit of a brighter space to work in. In general, it is quite personal, the working environment, and especially the home working environment. So if that works for her, then that's great. But I think it's just empty, it's underutilized. I would wish to see more of the design work there. I really do like the content architecture that I just make, so please definitely go visit them and watch the video in full. Yeah, let us know what you think, and if possible, please subscribe. Bye!